So, welcome everyone. My name is Ben, and obviously we've got Kai with us from Villager Homes in Brampton. This is going to be our first episode of our new podcast series. Today we're going to be focusing on new homes and what incentives you have with buying these. So, I mean, it's going to be the case, Kai, that a lot of younger people or even semi-retired, moving into retired professionals are going to want to move into a new home for many reasons. It may be that they're bored of doing work in their own property. They like the lavish lifestyle of coming in and finding everything brand new, unpacking and getting going. And I mean, from your experience so far, what is your first impression on a new home, just on the 2-second snippet? Is it's wonderful and fantastic, or is it they're mediocre?
Oh, mediocre, absolutely.
It's quite a controversial topic. I mean,
that's it, isn't it?
From the outside view, you look at your new homes and you can come in, you can, in some cases, design your floor plans to an essence. You can help restructure the room layout. You've got the state-of-the-art smart features. You've got all the bells and whistles. And, I mean, it's like a new car. Everyone loves a brand new car because no one's ever been in it before. So you're coming in, you're making it your own. You've not got to worry about repainting a room from bright yellow to a bland white. It's just getting going and getting started. But, I mean, when it comes to these new homes as well, there are multiple different incentives on offer. The government are offering these to try and make it easier for everyone to get onto that property ladder, to soften the blow, and in some cases there can be a hidden factor behind what's actually going on here. And I mean, just on that first question there, from your initial opinion, how many different schemes, different ways have you seen for or heard of to even get onto the property ladder into a new home?
Well, there is a lot. There's a lot of ones that have failed. There's a lot of ones that have been successful. I think the problem is that there's a lot of options out there. There's too many options out there. And my argument with new homes, they're serving a purpose. They're being built to fulfil the need for new housing, etc., etc. But I think they're doing a really good job of chucking them all in one area and completely saturating the market. So my views on it are slightly on the fence. Sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's a bad thing.
So it's a very grey area for a matter of opinions.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, you mentioned that they're starting to throw a lot of new homes into the same areas and then they're saturating the market. Well, I mean, in terms of the actual factual side to this, it's been noted that roughly sort of 162,000 new homes have been developed across the whole country last year.
Yeah.
And I mean, in many cases, that's where they've taken a plot of historically 20 homes, which would have been nice, comfortable, 4-bedroom, semi-detached, and now they're squeezing 50 or 60 terraced houses in there.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, it's serving the needs for new property and the ever-growing population of the country, but in the case of, is it the right fit? That's, I suppose, a different question for probably a topic at a later point. But I mean, at the moment now, it's initially understanding how do you come about finding these new properties, and then how do we start to get into these new properties. And the first incentive that many people may have heard of would be the Help to Buy scheme.
Oh, yes.
So the Help to Buy scheme can be confused in some cases between, is it the Help to Buy equity loan scheme or is it the Help to Buy ISA? Some people would see these falling under the same bracket, but I mean, in this case, let's look at the Help to Buy equity stream, which is very misconstrued in the element of no one really knows what goes on under the surface of it until they're deep into and months into the process of it, or when they're looking to leave their property. So when it comes to this Help to Buy equity scheme, from your experience and individuals that you've spoken to, have they seen the full big picture of what it entails in the long run, or are they just looking at the first 6 months or just looking at it as an option to get onto the market without the full understanding of what actually goes on with it?
Yeah, I think for me there's that element of living beyond your means, and that's what I'm finding now. I think that the Help to Buy scheme works really well for certain demographics of buyers, and I also think that it doesn't work well. The main reasons are I mean, I know this is like your topic to our channel today on this, but so I haven't prepared the exact facts, which I know that you have, but my argument with the Help to Buy schemes is that you're going to be living above your means. You're going to be also buying a property potentially above market value because you're almost using their services, so you kind of just go with their flow, which normally means a higher price. So you're going to end up in a property that you own essentially in negative equity if you're using a 5% deposit, because it's worth less money, and you're going to have not only your mortgage repayments, you're also going to have your equity loan repayments.
The interest build on top of that.
And then the interest after 5 years, I think. Yeah, so there's that part of it which I don't like. And the other part of it which I don't like is that it draws first-time buyers, second-time buyers. Well, it just draws buyers away from the second-hand market because there's so many more incentives. What I'm finding it more is with these houses that are built like 90s, early, late 90s, because they're still kind of like new buildy style. What I mean by that is that there's similar proximities to the current new builds, and there's similar sized garden plots and similar sized parking setups and so on and so on. So you've got this sort of element of competition between the house that were built sort of like in the early 90s onwards and then the brand new builds. Yeah. Now the problem with that is that the new builds are a lot more money than these ones because they're new. But then they're offering all of these Help to Buy schemes and all of these other schemes to make buyers choose it, as well as also things like they throw in stamp duty and stuff like that. So that part of it is the part that I don't like. I understand that it's actually a very good offering to help people get on the market. But I think what it's doing is it's stopping people that can already get on the market from buying a second-hand home to then buying a new build home. And because the new build homes are constantly turning over, there's more and more of them getting built, there's a consistent flow of them. So it's a consistent flow of people choosing a new build house over a second-hand house, which is reducing the value of these second-hand houses. Homes. Because we're having to almost sell them at such a low price, depending on the situation of the seller. The seller might just think, okay, let's wait it out. But if they are in a position where they do want or need to sell, they're almost selling for a lot less than what they could have if all of those new houses weren't there, saturating the market, than what they are.
Yeah. I think in essence it brings it back to the debate of compiling it against sort of the car strategy. You've got so many people again of, okay, let's go out and buy a new car. I've seen a brand new car with all of these offers and these gizmos to get me into buying these new cars, when in reality, you've got your used cars as well.
Yeah.
And I think it brings back the argument of it's new, it's shiny, let's jump into that. I've got something to help me to make it easier for me. However, there's not the actual longevity around that property. And what I mean by that is, as you mentioned, a lot of the time people are going to be living in negative equity with this.
Yeah, that's the main thing that gets me. The other thing is, like, I shouldn't really be probably going a bit off the bat here, but I'm thinking first-time buyers, right? They're a couple, maybe young couple, so let's say 30s, yeah? So 30-year-olds, young couple, buying their first house, they're great, in love, they've probably got, a nice car each, they're both working full-time, and they've sat their deposit down that they've saved for, and they've probably got a 10% deposit, and they're thinking, right, we can go and buy the second-hand house, but then get wowed by all these new builds. So then they use this shared Help to Buy scheme because they can get even bigger house and an even better house, and they're beyond their means. But what happens? Right, this is the other thing that I think people don't necessarily think about. What happens if they break up? So I know it's a bit of a harsh thing to say, but people do break up, don't they?
And when houses are caught in the middle of it, that's...
Yeah, but let's say, so we're talking 5 years of zero interest on this on this scheme, and I'm pretty sure you pay back on a monthly basis anyway. It's just not the interest, yeah?
Yeah, you pay it back on a monthly.
So you bought a house, you're potentially in negative equity anyway, still within that 5 years, depending on the market growth at the time, which isn't that great at the moment, so it's very likely within that 5 years' time you're still going to be in negative equity, and you break up 3 years down the line. Okay, I know it's like a harsh scenario, but let's say you break up. What are you going to do? You're stuck because you can't sell your house. Well, you could sell your house, but you've got to be able to support the rest of the mortgage that you owe, because you've only put down a 5% deposit. Go on, sorry, go on.
Well, I mean, yeah, if you're putting down your 5% deposit, that means typically you can loan up to, I believe it's around 20%.
Yeah.
So that leaves you with your 25%.
Yeah.
And then you've still got 75% of the remaining property through your mortgage.
Yeah.
Which is leaving, for someone that's put in the nicest way possible, quite a small deposit down.
Yeah.
Which, again, in the nicest way possible, and we may be mistaken making this sweeping statement, but if you're putting a 5% deposit down, you're not going to have a huge bank account behind you to run you if and support you if a negative outcome such as breaking up does happen.
Yeah.
So all you're now going to do, again, in the nicest way possible, is set yourself up for emotional stress, potentially, if you do break up, and that financial stress, which can result in, okay, I've now lost my car, I've now lost this, I've lost this.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah.
again, on the tin of it, it looks fantastic, but the hardline numbers are, again, you've only got your 5 years, which are interest-free.
Yeah.
Your deposit is 5%, so you can borrow up to 20%.
Yeah.
Again,
up to 25% or
up to 20%.
Okay.
So you've got your 25%, including your deposit, and your loan equity.
Yeah, yeah.
Again, leaving you with that remaining 75%, which I think a lot of people tend to forget. They tend to just look into, I'm borrowing 20% as a third to the final 75% still through their mortgage.
Yeah.
And this isn't even, again, considering how the market carries out. If it's a case in which the market has a huge decline over the following 2, 3, 4 years, your property is then decreasing in value. However, your loan fee isn't going to decrease in value in line with the property. You're still going to own the same amount, regardless of if your property goes up in value or if it's going down in value.
Yeah. So if you do sell your house though, and you still have to pay back that 20% equity loan or whatever is left of it, is it right that it takes it on the percentage of the sale price, whether it be down or up? So if like, oh god, it's for quick maths, you bought a house for 100 grand.
Yeah.
5% deposit, 20% equity loan, so that's 25,000 in it, isn't it? Yeah. And then you sold that house for 150 grand. Is that right then that you would pay 20% back of that 150,000? And then if it was in reverse, so say like the market declined and you sold the house for 50 grand, do you then only pay back? I know if it declines, you only pay back the 20% on, say, like the 50,000, whatever you sold it as. So you're kind of protected on that little buffer there, but still you're in negative equity because you've only put 5% deposit anyway. But but when it increases, it will be based on that percentage.
Is it? So it'll be based upon that percentage. So it will be the case in which, again, if the house value does increase, then you're throwing a huge amount more money away than you would have been before.
Yeah, because it's increasing. You've secured that percentage. Yeah. So it's not even an amount; it's a percentage.
It's on the percentage.
Yeah. So you've secured that percentage, and whatever you sell it as, that's what you pay back in that time. Wow. Okay.
Which is again often overlooked and misconstrued with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, that's sort of, I think what we'll do is we won't go into too much of the finer details.
Yeah, I think we've completely like just...
I suppose what everyone will notice as well is we'll ask Chai a question and it will then be half an hour, 40 minutes onto a sidetrack. And
I do need to point out though, although I've completely slated the Help to Buy scheme, it does work for some people.
Yes.
And I think for, because I need to say it because people are probably screaming like, it's fine for me. And it actually is fine for a lot of people. But what I'm saying is that there's a lot of people that step into that scheme. So I don't like it because of this reason. A lot of people step into that scheme without realising that they're living beyond their means and that it can all go very horribly wrong in a very short period of time. So that's my bugbear, and I feel like maybe all of this information should, the government should take this podcast and like play it to everybody that wants to buy a new build using a Help to Buy scheme, just so they're aware.
That's a bit optimistic.
Well, I think you never know. We might get more than one follower today. It'll be brilliant.
More than one like and one view. Right. Yeah. So that's our first strategy we're going to look into. Secondly, we've also got, along the ideology and the essence of Help to Buy, there's a Help to Buy ISA.
Yeah.
The Help to Buy ISA, I would say, in my opinion, is a lot easier to understand. And in some cases, a bit of a nicer route from the government. So, I mean, to break it into the Help to Buy ISA, it quite simply acts as it can do it in essence for your bank account. On your personal bank, you may have an ISA saving system. In this case, the government is now supporting you with a saving system for your house purchase.
Yeah.
So the hardline numbers and the facts around actual Help to Buy ISA is, again, it's that government scheme, and it was introduced for that fact and figure for you in 2015.
Yeah.
The Help to Buy ISA, it's just boosting you with your savings for when you do first come onto the property market and allowing you, again, to support you in that first purchase. It will operate for you in the essence that for every £200 you deposit as a base number, you're now going to get £50 for free, acting as at 25% margin.
Yeah. I like that. That works.
Nice and simple. You put your money in and you're getting something back for free. Yeah. However, as the government do with a lot of things, there is a cap on this.
Okay.
The cap on this will operate for you in terms of you're only allowed to save a maximum of £12,000. That will mean with that £12,000, you've received £3,000 on top of that.
Yeah.
Free money from the government, as that will be your 25%. So I mean, that's your hardline facts, your boring readables that you'll find on the internet. Something that I've found that a lot of people don't actually understand with this as well, or they don't realise, is that if it is a case that you're buying with maybe your partner or whoever it may be, each one of you can have an individual Help to Buy ISA. Instead of taking you from your technical 15,000,
can you merge them together?
You can then merge them together. So the Help to Buy ISA is constricted to per person, not per couple, not per purchase. It will run for you of, as a hypothetical, myself and yourself, Clive, if we were going in together, we could run our own ISA, and then we could merge this together for our property, which is a very misconstrued fact, which I've seen from conversations that I've had with people that I know, and also from forums that I've seen online.
Yeah.
But I mean, in terms of Help to Buy ISA and getting onto that property market, I'd like to understand your opinion on this, but from my side, I think it's quite a simplistic method.
I think it's very. I
less
think
confusion.
It's very good. Yeah, I do, and I never really. I don't really hear much talk about that. Okay, fair enough. I know that you're dealing more with the sort of sub 800. I deal with more the over 800 in the office, but actually, I don't hear it. I don't hear it from friends or colleagues that are just about to get onto the market that they've been saving in this ISA. This definitely needs to be something that's kind of published a bit more out there, because put maximum of 12 grand in, get an extra £3,000.
Extra £3,000. So
if two people are saving over a few years,
you've got potential to build
£15,000
a considerable amount of money
each. Yeah, 30 grand deposit, 10%. That's a £300,000 house. Tie that in with what do you call it? Free stamp duty for first time buyers at £300,000. That works.
You're in a lot better position than being in the position where maybe you've opted for your Help to Buy equity and now you're negative. With your Help to Buy ISA, you're positive. Yeah. In quite a simple term.
So what is it called? Just for if any of our viewers want to get that, how do they go about getting it?
A really good resource to understand anything about getting onto the property market or in general buying or selling properties, it would be through the Homeowners Association online. Government set up website. It breaks it down into quite nice terms in simplistic. It's got your hardline facts and figures. It's got your bullet points. It's just simply not overwhelming. So your best place to find an online resource in more detail on this would be through your Homeowners Association. For a quick Google search, you can find that easily.
Okay, that's really helpful actually. That's really good. Well, any first time buyers out there that are looking to get on the market over the next year, make sure you do this. It's free money. It just completely makes sense. So that's good.
Okay. And then I mean the final touch point we're going to go into on sort of new incentives on new buy it's going to be the shared ownership strategy.
I
mean, what we'll try and do is we'll try not to overwhelm people with facts and figures on everything under the sun. I think a lot can get lost in between that. And I mean, people probably end up getting bored of our voices and our faces soon enough anyway. So we won't give them too much in one go.
Well, we do have John Moris coming in soon, so hopefully he'll change it up a little bit for us.
Yeah, it would be a different tone then.
A more mature face.
I mean, now with the shared ownership, again, there can be confusion around how the shared ownership works. But to put it again into that, what we'll try and do is that simplistic terms. We'll try and keep the facts and figures in it, which everyone needs to understand, but not overwhelm them with random statistics and whatnot under that. So now when it comes to purchasing through a shared ownership, the way this will work for you is typically what you can do. I've just lost all my words then. We're on a good flow and now I've just lost it.
That's all right. It's all right. It was because I was talking about John Morris. It's just completely thrown you, hasn't it? One second. We need this.
For no reason.
Right, go on then. Start again. You ready?
Yeah. So now, when it comes to sort of another strategy, it would be your shared ownership. Shared ownership, again, as long as you understand what happens with the shared ownership and you know your facts and figures, it can help you and support you into getting into the market. But it will simply, what it's doing is it's giving you the ability to buy more of the home throughout. Oh, Jen, I've lost it. Jen.
It's all right. I mean, I remember shared ownership from back in the day, and it was a really popular thing to do. There's less of them now, and it's actually one of the questions that I'm going to pose to John later on, talking about him. But what was great about it is that you basically just bought a percentage of the property. Yeah. You could get a mortgage on that percentage, and then the rest of it was almost like a little bit of a rent.
Property as well.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people didn't. If I remember rightly, a lot of people just kind of bought it because it was an easy way onto the ladder, and then they kind of sold that share. They never really bothered buying into that share. I think there was always options to do that over a certain period of time. But they are good. I definitely see less of them now.
I don't have many conversations on it. I think what it is, I mean, this is again quite a sweeping statement, but people are just so lazy. They don't want to do their research. What they'll do, if there's a gizmo, whether it be online on a Facebook advertisement or whether it be pop up on your TV and advert, it gives them their one viewpoint of, okay, I can get onto the property market by doing X, Y, and Z, whether it be maybe a Help to Buy ISA, and if that's the first one they're seeing, people might just jump to it. Yeah. If it's a Help to Equity Buy loan system, then again, if it's the first one they're seeing, they might jump to it. So I think what's happening and why we're not having so many conversations around each different strategy is some people are just, again, sweeping statement, just lazy. Yeah. They don't want to do their research. They're not doing enough due diligence. However, when it's something as important as your house purchase, this should be something in your life that you're researching the most. Yeah.
Yeah. One thing, just before it goes past me, can you combo the ISA with a Help to Buy scheme or the ISA with the shared ownership? I don't know. You don't know? No. Okay, we're definitely buzzing that bit out. I don't know. No, just leave it in. It's fine. I think you can, but actually it'll be interesting. I think what we'll do is somehow put that in a comment below this post, just so it's answered it. I think you can. I'm almost like 99% sure, but I just wanted to ask that because actually maybe other viewers didn't realise that. That could do that. But yeah, I mean, look, in a nutshell, with the incentives that are on offer for new builds at the moment, really it's two. The most popular one is that Help to Buy scheme, and then the ISA, which I definitely think needs to be more out there for everybody to see, and then the shared ownership just seems to have almost been lost in the dust now. I think
it's just been diluted and the noise of everything else.
Absolutely, but I can remember, back in 2000, 2001, 2002, around that sort of time, it was just so big. Everybody was, every first-time buyer was getting shared ownership, and I can just remember at least sort of 30%, 40% of the inquiries that were coming in from first-time buyers, they were all very much interested in the shared ownership scheme. But yeah, well, that's the incentives. I'd say it's kind of off. Well, what I wanted to go into was so how we processed this today was as it's our first one, we didn't really know what we were doing. So we've had lots of really strategic meetings on how we're going to kind of do our first podcast or our first video for our channel. And what Ben forgot to do is even kind of tell you what we both do, but
we touched on the village homes in Brampton.
But I'll tell you midway through. So I mean, we both work for Villager Homes. I'm the director, and Ben works with me. But we kind of have split our roles up in a way of rather than having it so somebody goes out and lists a property. Or somebody comes out and values a property and then it gets passed over to somebody to then go and sell the property. What we've decided to do is actually just choose to to choose our clients carefully and work with them right from the moment that we go through their door and value their home all the way through to completion. So, you know, it's sort of, if I went out to value a property, I would be the one that shows that person around, that any buyers around from that. I'll be the one that's dealing with your solicitors from that. And then I'll be the one that hands over the keys at the end to your buyers. And we've split those two roles up quite easily, really. I'm much more focused on luxury homes. I also like period properties, so I kind of tend to have a bit of a fascination if anything like that comes in. And Ben's focus is very much on properties under 800,000. That's kind of like the thing that we put in now. That can go either way depending on what the property is. So that's kind of how we work in the office. So it's very likely that if you have a property under £800,000, you get Ben. Unless you want me, of course, and then just ask for me and I'll come. Or over £800,000, you get me. But you get us through the whole process. So I wanted to make that clear because I felt like it's quite important. I think it's the reason why it's important is because I think that we are the only agents around here that have that set up rather than having it in line with, you know, we have valuers, then we have salespeople, and then we have sales progressors. We do all one job for specific clients. And it also means that we can choose our clients as well, which is really good.
So, in the nicest way possible, if we don't work with you.
No.
I'm joking.
But so my subject is still on the new homes, obviously, but it's about the new builds in today's housing market. Now, we've touched on it quite a bit anyway, and I know we've gone really in depth into the Help to Buy scheme, the shared ownership, and the ISAs, which is I've learned a lot actually from that. But what effects actually is it having on the second-hand market? And that's a question that I posed to myself as soon as we went onto the subject of new homes. And you can probably tell that I have a fairly biased opinion on it from my earlier comments. And the problem that I have, and I'd love to be proved wrong, is that it is saturating the market in areas where there is a lot of new builds in such a condensed area. And I have some examples, and I'm going to use one of those in a minute. But what it's really doing is what I was saying about these houses in the 90s. They are essentially just sitting there on the market at a price that's a very good price for it and still not selling. And I kind of scratch my head and I think, why are they not selling? Why are they just sitting there at such a good price? And it's because next door or 2 roads down, there's a new development of new builds with brand new properties with a shinier sink. I don't know what it is, but you know, all in good condition, redecorated, new flooring, blah blah blah. And but it's the same size house. This is what really bugs me. It's the same house. It's probably like very similar bricks. It's pretty much the same size plot. It's basically the same area, and its proximity to the other properties are pretty much the same. So we've got like 2 identical houses. However, one's brand new and then one's not. It's like second-hand cars, isn't it? And new cars, yeah? So why is it that you would pay £50,000 more, which is the example that I've got, for a 3-bedroom detached house in Brampton because it's new, or £50,000 and buy a second-hand home that is the same size on the same plot with the same proximity, 2 streets down, by the way, just because it's not new build. And the house that I'm talking about actually is in Brampton, and it's on the market for 285,000, and that's been reduced heavily. It was on the market originally for 325, and 2 years ago, when there wasn't so many new builds around, we sold the identical house for 325. So there you go. But it's on the market now for 285, and we've got loads of viewings for it. People are coming in and out. The footfall on it's really good, but they're all saying the same thing.
It's not a new home.
Yeah, it's not a new home. We need to do this to it.
Shiny.
We need to do that, because they're getting kind of like shown into this world of all of these new builds, and they forget that it's the same house, but cheaper. Which you can
do more with.
Yeah, and the reason why is, I think, is because the new homes offer all of these schemes, and they will say, you know, we'll pay for your stamp duty, which is fair enough. That's money off. If you think about it in terms of just saving money, it's potentially money off the sale price. But still, what I've experienced is people are still paying around about £35,000 more for a house of the same standard at that £300 mark. So because of all of the the Help to Buy schemes, readily available for first-time buyers or second-time buyers, or any buyers, in fact, actually, isn't it? It's not just focused on first-time buyers. Anyone can use the Help to Buy scheme.
At times, it can be focused on first-time.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some requirements within that, but I mean, we can go into that at a later date.
Yeah. And what normally happens is that they don't normally go in and buy the equivalent house. What they do is they have a look at the Help to Buy scheme, and they realise that they can spend more money and live beyond their means, essentially. And I do it. I've got things that I just think to myself, I really didn't need this stuff. And living beyond
one
my
example
means.
of this is his footwear that he's wearing.
I can't believe you just pointed that out. Hopefully this video can't see my footwear. We're not going there. It's my special occasion.
Everyone does.
It's my special occasion shoes. This is a special occasion. I thought I'd put them on. That being said, they go in a box. Yeah. Okay. Anyway. Yeah.
It's another example is when I'm sure everyone's been there. They've done it. They've been out for dinner, been out for drinks, and the next day realise they've spent north of 150 pounds.
Yeah.
When in reality, that's 2 weeks worth of wages or whatnot.
Yeah. So let's scale this up into property then. So that 150,000 pounds is actually 15,000. In fact, it's a lot more. It's 40,000 pounds. So you're ending up basically living beyond your means because you've just found an even bigger, shinier house that you couldn't afford without the Help to Buy scheme. You're using the Help to Buy scheme to buy it. You're buying it at a price which is inflated because you're using all of these services. They're kind of like saying, well, if you want all of this, this is the price. And then you're moving in, and then on day 2, the house is worth less, which is proven, despite the fact that it still looks brand new. On day 2, it's worth less. And you've got a Help to Buy scheme, so that's extra outgoings on a monthly basis, as well as your mortgage, as well as you've put down your deposit for it. So buy second-hand homes, or at least consider them more, because
it's just doing the research around it.
Yeah,
understanding what works best for your financial situation.
Yeah,
what's going to work best in the longevity of the situation, and again, I mean, everyone has it with their cars. Again, don't put the car situation in the car scenario.
Yeah. 6
months into it, a year into it, you're bored of your car.
Yeah.
A lot of people are going to be like that with a brand new house.
Nobody buys brand new cars anymore. They lease them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's because they've realised. Yeah, it's just a waste of money. They realise that they're not going to put £35,000 on a new Audi these days because they know it's dead money. As soon as they drive it off, it's worth £5,000 to £10,000 less. A year or two's time, it's going to be worth even less than that. People lease them and PCP them, don't they?
I think it's just them bringing that awareness, and I know we're going back to that as our scenario and as our focus point, but bringing that awareness from that side of the industry world in car situations to the housing market as well.
Yeah.
And it's just giving everyone that full picture of how it operates, how it works, and again, giving people the full picture around what works best for them. And it's just not being caught into shiny new house syndrome. It's let's go and find a different house, or even compare these houses. Look to what can this be in 6 months' time? What can it be in a year's time? What can I do with this house?
Yeah. So I think to summarise that just subject is that, again, if you want a new house, fine. Buy them. There is lots of offers. There is the Help to Buy scheme. There is the stamp duty. Stamp duty is for everything, isn't it? Shared ownership. So there's all these things, and if you want a shiny new house, and if you're because some people are in a position or a situation that they don't want to do any work, they just want to move in and it be done. Yeah. So I appreciate there is certain circumstances, but I do feel that people rule out and it's usually these sort of like houses that were built some like early 90s to like mid 2005 or early 90s onwards, really, because they have so many similarities. And then they just kind of buy into the whole shininess of the new builds, and I just feel like that they should consider it more. And that's my bugbear, really, with it all. And that is the fundamental thing is because I feel like new builds are very, very important. They serve a purpose. There was a housing shortage. Yeah. We need to build more houses. We need people to find homes. Yeah, I get it. So we need to build houses. It's kind of like how they do it is, it's almost like every local council almost was given a map and say, I need you to find me so many zones to build.
Clump these houses.
Houses together, whack them all in there on a heat map, and then kind of go from it and then go with it. So then they kind of submitted all these maps. This is just my view. I don't actually know if this is true or not, but this is kind of what I think in my head, how it's been done. And then all of these houses get built, and they really get built in a condensed area. And Brampton, the reason why we're using Brampton is because our office is in Brampton, so we kind of like see it around us on a daily basis. Brampton's pretty much got cranes in every single direction at the moment building properties, hasn't it? And that's a good thing, because Brampton needs homes, Buckton needs homes, all of the other villages located needs new homes. But it's just, I think, not only that they do it in such a condensed area, but it's all at once. So it's in a really saturated. And I did actually put down some basic numbers here. And it was, so on Rightmove, if you use Rightmove, everyone uses Rightmove these days, there's 97 houses, or when I did this, which was a couple of days ago, 97 houses on the market in Brampton. So that's quite a lot of houses, yeah? And 46 of them are new builds.
New build, so you're looking at what, around your 45-50% mark.
A lot, but okay, so that's one stat to consider. But now let's think about 2 years ago. Okay, there was less than 30 houses on the market, right? So, okay, so you could argue, right, yeah, so there's loads of new builds, that's why there's more properties. But actually, no, because there's loads of new builds, there's now even more second-hand homes on the market because they can't sell. Because they all know what the house should be worth, but they're not getting it because they're competing against
a brand new house,
a brand new
house with all the schemes.
Yep. So my kind of my views on what effects it's had on the second-hand market is basically it's just saturated it in some areas, and I feel like maybe that everybody should have been a bit more cautious of what effect it was going to have on the local market. And I know that every local, most people in towns and villages that this happens to, I know that they do try to oppose and go for it all. I never really see anybody ever winning these days.
It doesn't tend to stop the traction, really, does it?
No, the traction, that's my favourite word this week. No, it doesn't seem to stop the traction. I feel like it's, sometimes I feel like it's on deaf ears. Yeah. Anyway, price comparisons in Brampton. So I've got that, price comparison that I was saying about Link Drive. So I think that's quite a good comparison to use, which I've already used. And then there was, I wanted to use Trumpington as well, and it actually really kind of shows how close we are as far as values to Cambridge, which is a really good thing, especially around this area, because we are actually in a little bubble of Cambridge. Yeah, but basically in Cambridge you could buy a second-hand 4-bedroom detached house for around about $500,000. About 525 is what I've got, and a new build is 625. So that's 16% more on a new build over a second-hand home. And in I did that same exercise in Brampton, and it was 15% more. So basically you're paying 15 to 16% more, and this isn't on prices that are marketed, because we all know properties sell for more or less or whatever than the market price. These are completed prices.
Sold houses.
Yeah, these are sold prices agreed. So we're talking there's a 15%.
Which is a huge difference.
Yeah, but again, you know, if you want shiny new, maybe that 15% on, you know, £400,000 is worth it. It's an extra maybe it's not. It's an extra 60 grand.
That's your brand new Audi.
No, buy second hand and get a decorator. Bloody hell. Right. Okay. So that's pretty much what I wanted to say about my views on the second hand market. But we do I feel like we've gone all out on our first sort of channel, because I've managed to rope in. He's actually a good friend. As well, I've managed to rope in John, who's out the back there. He's going to come. I'm going to set you up, John. He's here, and I've sent him over some questions, and he's had a look into them, and he's agreed to come on and speak to us. So I really appreciate you coming on, John. So yeah, come over and we'll get you set up. Can we do like a magical thing where John just appears, like ta-da? He's here. No. No, okay, fine, we won't do that then. Yeah, so we've got John Moris here with us today, and he is the local councillor for Brampton and Hinchinbrook. His personal telephone number will appear on the screen. I'm only joking. We won't do that to you. But I thought it was a really good idea to get John in to kind of discuss new houses. I always see John talking about it on social media and other channels, his views on it, and I thought actually he's the right person to get in to discuss not only locally with hopefully some facts and figures, but actually just across the board his thoughts on it. But first of all, John, the question that we're going to ask every person now, which is your idea, which is really good. What was the first house you bought, and how was your experience?
Wow, well, this is going to give my age away a little bit. I bought my first house back in 1983 when I was perhaps similar age to, well, a little bit younger than what you are now, Kai,
Okay,
I suspect. And I was working down at the time for Bournemouth Borough Council in housing. I had first line housing manager post at that time. And I bought a 3-bedroom semi-detached house, 1930s, in Poole. The purchase price was £24,000. And at that time, I was earning about £8,000. So the affordability ratio was 3 to 1, 8,000 earnings, 24,000 purchase price. Now, if you look at the affordability ratio now, typically, well, if you take an average earnings now of maybe, should we say 25, because it's an easy figure to calculate.
Fair amount,
25, and maybe an average purchase price of 250, would you say, something like?
Yeah, 3-bedroom semis sort of thing.
Okay, so that would be an affordability ratio of 10 to 1 as opposed to 3 to 1. So it just illustrates how much harder it is now for a first-time buyer to actually get their foot on the housing ladder. And I suppose we could, people of my age could say, we were so fortunate because housing was so much more affordable decades ago than it is now for people who are struggling, trying to get onto the housing ladder.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's mad, and it just shows how difficult it is these days, doesn't it?
Do you know what? I'm going to jump back a minute.
Yeah.
So when John bought his first house, before I was born.
Yeah, that's 36 years ago.
Thanks for
I'll
that.
make you feel a bit older there.
Yeah, 36 years ago, is that right? Yeah, about that.
Yeah.
How was your experience with buying the house, though? Did you buy it through an estate agent? Did you find it in a newspaper or shop window? Or?
Yeah, typically through an estate agent. I remember, I think I put a £2,000 deposit down on that house, so I borrowed £22,000. Then I took in a couple of nurses as lodgers to help me pay the mortgage. Yes. Unfortunately, there was only one toilet in the property, so that was sometimes a problem because nurses. Well, I don't wish to sound sexist, but the bathroom was often occupied, shall we say? But that was a problem that we managed to overcome. Because the main difference between now and then is interest rates were significantly higher. So now maybe people can actually borrow a larger percentage because interest rates are relatively so much lower. But my recollection back in the 80s was it wasn't particularly difficult to maintain my mortgage payments and also to have, a fairly enjoyable lifestyle, where now many people who are, first-time buyers, they're spending so much of their disposable income on their housing cost that it is, a particular struggle for them.
Yeah, and it is the plan then to build loads of new houses, so then it evens the market out for earnings to make it easier for people to live?
I think what's been happening both locally and nationally is that we haven't built sufficient new homes to meet the needs of the growing population, and also the fact that we have more smaller households as well, which means we do need more homes. And I think it's generally accepted that we are in the midst of a housing crisis, but it's not just a recent housing crisis, and it's not just because of the current government. Successive governments have failed to build sufficient new homes since about the 1980s. If you look at the actual projections of how many houses will be being built each year, at some stages governments were building 300,000 homes a year plus. Yeah. And now often figures have been closer to 150,000, that type of thing. So that situation has accumulated year on year. And those of us know anything about the basic laws of economics, when the demand exceeds the supply, then the house prices go up. And I'm sure we're all well aware that house price inflation has outpaced wage inflation virtually year on year and year.
Yeah. So do you then predict that with the amount of new builds that are going to be happening now and over the next several years, it is going to have an impact on the property value? Do you think it's designed to lower the value to make homes more affordable?
I mean, anyone would need a crystal ball to actually predict what's going to happen to the future of house prices. I'm reluctant to use the B word, but I think Brexit is a major factor on what might happen going forward. Because my observation is there's a lot of nervousness on people making big purchase decisions pre-Brexit, because no one knows for sure what's going to happen to the economy in the next few years. So I suspect unless people actually need to move, many people are sitting on their hands and not making those decisions to perhaps move up within the housing market, or even to make their first purchase onto the housing market. I don't know if that's your experience from people that come across your front door.
Yes, it is, but then my argument to that is there's still a lot of houses on the market for sale. And I think that, so bar the new builds, all of the second-hand homes that are currently on the market for sale, it's very likely that the majority of those are looking to buy something. So there is still lots of buyers around, but it feels like nobody can sell anything, therefore nobody can buy anything, which is probably because of Brexit. So I think there are a lot of buyers still around, but I think a lot of them are sitting on their hands at the moment as well. But there is still obviously a case of a lot of people needing to sell because there's a lot of houses still on the market. And that's it, because this whole buying and selling process, people don't necessarily want to move. They make a decision that they have to move, and it could be to relocate to family or job move and so on. So there's lots of reasons, and I think the majority of reasons that help people decide that they have to move outweighs the amount of people that just decide they wanted to move just for the hell of it.
Yeah, people get itchy feet, they talk about the 7-year itch, and then people then think, right, what should we do next year? Let's move house, type of thing.
So maybe it stopped that lot. Maybe it stopped that demographic of people that gets the itchy feet. But there is still loads of others that need to sell. But going back on sort of like just building the new builds, what pressure is the local authorities getting to deliver all of these new build houses?
Well, the government requires each local authority to have what's called a local plan, which is a long-term strategic document which sets out how many houses it must build over the plan period. And in the case of Huntingdonshire's case, Huntingdonshire District Council has just adopted a new local plan which covers a 25-year period. It takes us actually through to 2036, and the council has to deliver or build or enable the building of 20,000 new homes over the 25-year plan period. So we're talking about an average of 700 to 800 homes a year. Now, if you turn the clock back a few years, there's been many years when the council's failed to do that in the past. But at the moment, we are at a slight peak, as it were, and I heard you discuss earlier about the number of new homes being built in Brampton, for instance, and there's also places like Alconbury Weald where there's lots of new homes are being built, and on Godmanchester as well. So there's quite a lot of new houses coming through at the moment, but in a way that's kind of making up for what hasn't been built in past years. And one of the things the government is very keen to do is to make sure that sufficient new houses are built to meet identified housing needs. And so each council has to have what's known as a 5-year land supply. And if they don't demonstrate that those new homes are going to be coming forward in the forthcoming 5 years, then they are put under significant pressure, shall we say, to accelerate planning permissions and so forth. So yes, there's significant pressures, but at the moment, the District Council is very confident that it does have a 5-year land supply, so those sites will be coming forward.
So interestingly, keeping it local then, or actually just nationally, have all of those land sites already been identified across the board? Is there sort of, well, I use a heat map. Is there like a heat map of land banks that are ideal for development and being sort of targeted for the new lots?
Well, the simple answer to that is yes. In the local plan, allocates sites within the district council area which are appropriate for housing developments. So they're the locations within a red line where homes can be built. So that those locations are identified. But obviously, different houses are at different stages in the pipeline. Some may have an outline planning permission, some may have a full planning permission, or some may not even be at that stage.
Yeah.
And as we all know, the house building process can take years to achieve, especially if it's a major strategic site like Alconbury Weald. I mean, Alconbury Weald, where there's going to be something like 5,000 new homes, that's been in the planning process probably for the best part of 8 to 10 years now. And those houses are going to be built out probably over the next 15 to 20 years. So it's a major, it's a major undertaking. And of course, it's not just about building houses; it's about building communities as well. So we were talking about, schools, parks, play facilities, shops, and so forth. Because infrastructure, building houses is one thing, but you also need to build the infrastructure to support those houses as well.
Yeah, and actually, that's a very good point. Does the local is it the local authorities that decide? Okay, fine. You want to build X amount of houses. We need this sort of infrastructure in that area. Who decides that?
Yeah, as part of the planning process, conditions will be applied to each planning application depending on the size of that application. That might be called under what's called a Section 106 agreement, for instance. And so that makes a requirement that the planning permission is subject to certain things being delivered, certain infrastructure requirements. So Alconbury Weald is a good example. Already, as part of that permission, a primary school has been built and has been open for, I think it's a year or more, and there's also plans for a secondary school to be built in future years at Alconbury Weald and other facilities as well. And also other important things like infrastructure, good cycling infrastructure.
Yeah.
Because one of the big issues that people talk to me about all the time is traffic congestion and air pollution and concerns over climate change and so forth. So one of the things we need to try and do is to get more people out of their cars and promoting more active travel, more walking and cycling.
Yeah, and I know that you're very big into this subject, and I knew that it would come up, actually. I knew it would come up. But it's I agree. I'm also, an very good cyclist. But
You're too modest.
But we go to like Europe, Holland or whatever. We go cycling around there, and it seems like the whole country's been set up for cyclists. Why has that not happened yet? I mean, so now we're designing all of these new builds, and we're almost designing, building whole new towns. But still, in those new towns, it doesn't seem like we're anywhere near what they are in Europe with cycling paths. Do you think that will ever happen?
Yeah, well, obviously I hope that it will do. All I would say is in countries like Holland, which is known as one of the leaders for promoting cycling and walking, it wasn't always that way. And it was only because there was, back in, I think, the 1960s, 1970s, people, the general public were just so concerned about the rate of deaths on the road and the number of children being killed and so forth as a result of motor car accidents, that there was a political sea change, really. And that changed over those decades, the 1970s, 80s and 90s, where now one of the major modes of transport is walking and cycling. We haven't achieved that yet in the UK. I mean, Cambridge, just down the road from us, is regarded as the cycling capital of the UK, but that hasn't spread out across the rest of the country. So it will need a lot of political change and a political will to change that. And I'm hopeful that might come, but it's up to, I suppose, political leaders to actually campaign for that to happen.
We touched on it seems to be whenever a large development is being done, there's a lot of the local public opposing that. I stated, and I do believe this, that it seems to fall on deaf ears a lot. Who controls that? Is it the local authorities, or is it much bigger than that? Who's the one that's taking in that information and actually making that decision? Because I can imagine with this title, New Homes, there's going to be a lot of listeners, especially knowing that you're on here, locally, that will be interested in knowing your opinion on that, because well, you know, there was the development in Buckton. We're keeping local. There was a development in Buckton locally, and everybody was, you know, up in arms about that and wanted that to stop. And it seemed like it fell on deaf ears, and it's getting built. And Brampton, there was a certain development that people felt the same about, and it's still getting built. I mean, is it worth complaining?
Yeah, let me perhaps briefly describe the process. Interesting, your comment about everybody was up in arms.
Sorry, my view. Yeah.
I suspect many first-time buyers, many young people who are looking to get a foot on the housing ladder, perhaps we're not so much up in arms. It is sometimes suggested, I'm being diplomatic here, it is sometimes suggested that it is often the people who are well housed, sitting in very comfortable positions with their mortgages paid off, so forth and so on. Often people of my age who oppose new developments, but also frequently younger people who need homes in the future. Their voice isn't being heard, and often they don't campaign. Perhaps they think it's a waste of time. I'm not sure what it is. So there are kind of
very valid
two sides to that. But the process is each planning application goes to the local council, in our case Huntingdonshire District Council, and the planning application will be considered in accordance with the local plan policy. That's this rather fat document here of so many hundreds of pages, if the application does not fit in an appropriate place or an appropriate scale, then the application can be refused. So it's a very open and transparent process. I for my sins sat on the planning committee for 5 years. I came off a year ago, and I think 5 years is long enough for anyone to sit on a planning committee. But I thought, and when I sit on the planning committee, I have to be extremely impartial and in my role as a member of the planning committee, consider each application on its merits and not predetermine any application until I have heard all of the facts. Putting that to one side, I've always been absolutely clear, and I'm well renowned for the fact that I have been a champion for campaigning for more affordable housing for young people. I'm passionate about that, and if people criticise me for that, I'm also happy to take that criticism on the chin. So those planning applications come forward. But the point I was going to go on to make is, for so many applications, people would come to the planning committee and make their case, and it almost like Groundhog Day, application after application, people would say, yes, we understand that we need new homes, and that we have a housing crisis, but this is the wrong application at the wrong time in the wrong location. And if I had £1 every time I heard that, I would be I think a multi-millionaire. I suppose the fact is, A, people generally don't like change, and B, people don't like new homes being built within sight of where they live. The classic case of not in my backyard. And at the end of the day, new homes do need to be built. And if we just took into account the number of people who signed a petition saying we don't want this scheme, then the danger is we'd never have any new homes being built, and that would just be storing up major problems for the future.
Yeah. Well, we've got to wrap it up now anyway, but I always I think the question that we were trying to answer really throughout this whole thing, if there even was a question, was buy new or buy old, right? What's the better option? And I think actually after all of this, there is no answer. Everyone's individual, and there's valid points to buy new and there's valid points to buy old. And I appreciate that we do need the new homes. I imagine actually this is probably a topic that we'll have to do another spin-off from this, because I feel like there's so much more that could be said. There's so many different viewpoints of it all. I don't know if you both agree. But
I was listening to your conversation earlier about the help to buy and government help to buy schemes, and I was dying to interrupt there, or not interrupt, but to contribute to the discussion, because certainly my own view, and actually the view of many sort of national housing commentators, is Help to Buy schemes are great schemes for people who take advantage of it because, you know, if the government's gifting you money, then that's a fabulous thing to do, you know, for the few people who benefit from that scheme. But what Help to Buy hasn't done, it hasn't actually increased the housing supply. It has been recognised that in many cases, because of the subsidy the government have put into Help to Buy schemes, that it's had an inflationary increase on new house prices, where the fundamental problem has been the lack of supply of new homes. And if you don't increase the supply sufficiently, then you're just going to increase house prices above average earnings.
Yeah, yeah. And my whole argument is really with the new builds. I know that we need them. There is a demand for them, but I believe that they should care a bit more about how much they condense all of these new builds in certain areas. And Brampton is a fantastic example, but there's many places all over the UK where it seems like every sort of site around the village or inside the village is being targeted for a large-scale development. And I just wish that it was either slow down a little bit or more spread out throughout the area, really, because it does have an effect.
Yeah, I think housing densities are, it's a key issue, isn't it? And obviously it depends on the type of location. But I would agree with you though, if we cram too many houses in too small a location, especially in semi-rural areas, then it can have an adverse effect, because it's not just about bricks and mortar, it's about building homes and communities and places where people want to live.
Yeah, right. Well, thank you, John. I really appreciate it. As I said before, John's a good friend of mine for the last 5 or 6 years, I think, that we first met. And I imagine I'm going to try and get you back in at some point.
It's been a pleasure.
For another subject, maybe give you a bit more time, because I can tell that you've got so much that you'd like to say on this subject as well. But I'm Kai. This is my colleague, Ben. Feel free to give us a call at any time if you want any more information on the new builds. And indeed, if you do want to buy or sell a property that's sort of in our area, give us a call. We'll happily come out and talk to you. Thanks very much.